Hey, sis, do you want to say hi? Say hi. She doesn't want to say hi. Okay, going live.
Hi.
All right. So,
Can I have to go?
yeah, give me just 1 second.
Tell me when you're done. I'll sit on the bed.
Okay,
Have a little rest.
you may take it. Here you go. Sorry, we're live. And sorry, I look rough. It was a long day. Just shut the door, sis. So, hi, sweetie. I know you're on there. I see you. You're so cute, you guys. Sorry, I'm a little scattered today. Yeah, like I said, it wasn't letting me do it, so I had to make a whole new stream. But it's working now, so that's good. I'm curious. I decided, just for fun, I want to before I start reading every night, I'm gonna say what I had for dinner and have anybody, if they want, what you have for dinner, put it in the chat. I had barbecue chicken, Murphy's, also known as twice baked potatoes, and green beans with like cheese and breadcrumbs and bacon bits on top baked. It was yummy. It was really good. And I'm making jello salad for dessert. So, what'd you guys have? Aw, bye, you're so sweet. Aw, you're so sweet. I love you guys so much, and this is so fun for me because even though I can't see you, I know you're there, and it makes it so special. And like I said, I miss my time with you guys. So it's been really, really fun for me, and I've been a little bit surprised um, how positive I've got a lot more views and subscribers than I expected. I thought I'd have 3 or 4, and it's actually, that's only the third time, and it's actually going pretty good, which is fun. Oh, and I have to show off my shirt. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Charles had it made special for me a year and a half ago. Isn't that cute? I love it. Okay, so The Witch of Blackbird Pond, Chapter 3. Little recap of Chapter 2 that we read yesterday. So the girl Kit, they were on the ship, taken forever to get up the stream. They finally get to the landing, and she admits to the captain that her aunt, who she's going to stay with and live with, never even sent for her, doesn't even know she's coming. So her grandfather died, so she's kind of crazy, and she just thought, okay, well, I'll go stay with my aunt. I'll just go live with them. Of course they'll want me because I'm their niece, and they don't even know she's coming, which is crazy. But so the captain is not very happy with her. There's no way he would have even let her board the ship if he had known that she was just going to go show up at their house and they didn't even know she was coming. But that's where it's at. So we'll pick up at chapter 3. I've got to get me a bookmark, or make me one anyway, so I can find the right spot. Okay, chapter 3. Here we go. Along with her pretty shoes, Kit's spirits sank lower at each step. She had clutched at a hope that the dark fringe of dripping trees might somehow be concealing the town she had anticipated, but as they plodded along the dirt road past wide stumpy fields, her last hopes died. There was no fine town of Wethersfield. There was a mere settlement, far more lonely and dreary than Saybrook. A man in a leather coat and breeches led a cow along the road. He stopped to stare at them, and even the cow looked astonished. Captain Eaton took advantage of the meeting to ask directions. High Street, the man said, pointing his jagged stick. Matthew Wood's place is at the third house beyond the common. High Street, indeed. No more than a cow path. Kit's shoes were wet through, and the soaked ruffles of her gown slapped against her ankles. She would naturally have lifted her skirts free of the uncut grass, but a new self-consciousness restrained her. She was aware at every step of the young man who had strode behind her with a trunk balanced easily on each shoulder. She relaxed slightly at the first glimpse of her uncle's house. At least it looked solid and respectable, compared to the cabins they had passed. 2.5 stories it stood, gracefully proportioned, with leaded glass windows and clapboards weathered to a silvery gray. The captain lifted the iron knocker and let it fall with a thud that echoed in the pit of the girl's stomach. For a moment she could not breathe at all. Then the door opened and a thin, gray-haired woman stood on the threshold. She was quite plainly a servant, and Kit was impatient when the captain removed his hat and spoke with courtesy. "Do I have the honor of addressing—" The woman did not even hear him. Her look had flashed past to the girl who stood just behind, and her face had suddenly gone white. One hand reached to clutch the doorpost. "Margaret." The word was no more than a whisper. For a moment, the two women stared at each other. Then realization swept over Kit. "No, Aunt Rachel," she cried. "Don't look like that. It is Kit. I am Margaret's daughter." "Kit? You mean, can it possibly be Catherine Tyler?" For a moment I thought, "Oh, my dear child, how wonderful!" All at once, such a warmth and happiness swept over her pale face that Kit, too, was startled. Yes, this strange woman was indeed Aunt Rachel, and once, a long time ago, she must have been very beautiful. Captain Eaton cleared his throat. "Well," he observed, "I am relieved that this has turned out well after all. What will you have me do with the baggage, ma'am?" Rachel Wood's eyes focused for the first time on the 3 trunk-bearers. "Goodness!" she gasped. "Do all these belong to you, child? You can just set them there, I suppose, and I'll ask my husband about them. Can I offer you and your men some breakfast, sir?" "Thank you, we can't spare any more time. Good day, young lady. I'll tell my wife I saw you safely here." "I'm sorry to have caused you trouble," Kit said sincerely, "and I do thank you, all of you." 2 of the 3 sailors had already started back along the road, but Nat stood beside the trunks and looked down at her. As their eyes met, something flashed between them, a question that was suddenly weighted with regret. But the instant was gone before she could grasp it, and the mocking light had sprung again into his eyes. "Remember," he said softly, "only the guilty ones stay afloat." And then he was gone. The doorway of Matthew Wood's house led into a shallow hallway from which a narrow flight of stairs climbed steeply. Through a second door, Kit stepped into the welcome of the great kitchen. In a fireplace that filled half one side of the room, a bright fire crackled, throwing glancing patterns of light on creamy plaster walls. There was a gleam of rubbed wood and burnished pewter. "Matthew, girls!" cried her aunt. "Something wonderful has happened. Here is Catherine Tyler, my sister Margaret's girl, come all the way from Barbados." 3 people stared up at her from the plain board table. Then, from his place at the head, a man unfolded his tall, angular body and came toward her. "You are welcome, Catherine," he said gravely, and took her hand in his bony fingers. She could not read the faintest sign of welcome in his thin, stern lips, or in the dark eyes that glowered fiercely at her from under heavy, grizzled eyebrows. Behind him, a girl sprang up from the table and came forward. "This is your cousin Judith," her aunt said, and Kit gasped with pleasure. Judith's face fulfilled in every exquisite detail the picture she had treasured of her imagined aunt. The clear white skin, the blue eyes under a dark fringe of lashes, the black hair that curled against her shoulders, and the haughty lift of the perfect small chin. This girl could have been the toast of a regiment. "And your other cousin, Mercy." The second girl had risen more slowly, and at first Kit was only aware of the most extraordinary eyes she had ever seen. Gray as rain at sea, wide and clear and filled with light. Then, as Mercy stepped forward, one shoulder dipped and jerked back grotesquely, and Kit realized that she leaned on crutches. "How lovely," breathed Mercy, her voice as arresting as her eyes, "to see you after all these years, Catherine." "Will you call me Kit?" The question sounded abrupt. Kit had been her grandfather's name for her, and something in Mercy's smile had reached straight across the gulf so that suddenly she wanted to hear the name spoken again. "Have you had breakfast?" "I guess not. I hadn't even thought of it." "Then 'tis lucky we are eating late this morning," said her aunt. "Take her cloak, Judith. Come close to the fire, my dear. Your skirt is soaking." As Kit threw back the woolen cloak, Judith's reaching hand fell back. "My goodness!" she exclaimed. "You wore a dress like that to travel in?" In her eagerness to make a good impression, Kit had selected this dress with care, but here in this plain room it seemed over elegant. The three other women were all wearing some nondescript sort of coarse gray stuff. Judith laid the cloak thoughtfully on a bench and reached to touch Kit's glove. "What beautiful embroidery," she said admiringly. "Do you like them? I'll give you some just like them if you like. I have several pairs in my trunk." Judith's eyes narrowed. Rachel Wood was setting out a pewter mug and spoon and a crude wooden plate. "Sit here, Catherine, where the fire will warm your back. Tell us how you happened to come so far. Did your grandfather come with you?" "My grandfather died 4 months ago," Kit explained. "Why, you poor child! All alone there on that island. Who did come with you then?" "I came alone." "Praise be!" her aunt marveled. "Well, you're here safe and sound. Have some cornbread, my dear. 'Twas baked fresh yesterday, and there is new butter." Surprisingly, the bread tasted delicious, though of a coarse texture, like nothing she had ever tasted before. Probably not a lot of corn in Barbados, I'm guessing, so no cornbread, huh? Kit lifted the pewter mug thirstily and abruptly set it down. "Is that water?" she asked politely. "Of course, drawn fresh from the spring this morning." Water for breakfast! But the cornbread was good, and she managed uh, she managed a second piece in spite of her dry tongue. Rachel Wood could not seem to look away from the young face across the table, and every few moments her eyes brimmed over with tears. "I declare, you look so much like her it takes my breath away. But all the same, there is a hint of your father there too. I can see it if I look closely." "You remember my father?" Kit asked eagerly. "I remember him well. A fine, upstanding lad he was. I never could blame Margaret. But it broke my heart to have her go so far." But Rachel had come even further. Oh, I'm sorry. Look at the camera and I look terrible. My hair's such a mess. Sorry, everybody. What could she have seen in that fierce, silent man to draw her away from England? Could he have been handsome? Perhaps, with that strong, regal nose and high forehead, but so terrifying. Matthew Wood had not sat down at the table with the others. Though he had said nothing, Kit had been aware that not a motion had escaped his intent scowl. Now he pulled down a leather jacket from a peg on the wall and thrust his long arms into the sleeves. "I will be working in the South Meadow," he told his wife. "You had best not expect me till sundown." At the open door, however, he stopped and looked back at them. "What is all this?" he inquired coldly. "Oh," said Kit, scrambling to her feet. "I forgot. Those are my trunks." "Yours? 7 trunks? What can be in them?" "Why, my clothes and a few things of grandfather's." 7 trunks of clothes, all the way from Barbados, just for a visit? The cold measured words fell like so many stones into the quiet room. Kit's throat was so dry she longed not to swallow the water. She lifted her chin. Oh my goodness, that didn't even make sense. Sorry, I read it wrong. Kit's throat was so dry she longed now to swallow the water. She lifted her chin and looked directly into those searching eyes. "I have not come for a visit, sir," she answered. "I have come to stay with you." There was a little gasp from Rachel. Matthew Wood closed the door deliberately and came back toward the table. "Why did you not write to us first?" Seriously, though, why did she not write? That's crazy. All her life, whenever her grandfather had asked her a question, he had expected a direct answer. Now, in this stern man facing her, so totally different from her grandfather, Kit sensed the same quality of directness, and out of an instinctive respect, she gave the only and honest answer she could. "I did not dare to write," she said. "I was afraid that you might not tell me to come, and I had to come." Rachel leaned forward to put a hand on Kit's arm. "We would not have refused you if you were in need." Oh, sorry, that's the uncle talking. Thought it was the wife. "We would not have refused you if you were in need," said her uncle, "but a step like this should not be taken without due pondering." "Matthew," protested Rachel timidly, "what is there to ponder? We are the only family she has. Let us talk about it later. Now Catherine is tired, and your work has been delayed already. Matthew Wood drew up a chair and sat down heavily. The work will have to wait, he said. It is best that we understand this matter at once. How did you come to set sail all alone? There was a ship in the harbor, and they said it was from Connecticut. I should have sent a letter, I know, but it might have been months before another ship came, so instead of writing, I decided to come myself. Okay, I guess that makes sense, kind of. You mean that, just on an impulse, you left your rightful home and sailed halfway across the world? No, it was not an impulse exactly. You see, I really had no home to leave. What of your grandfather's estate? I always understood he was a wealthy man. I suppose he was wealthy once, but he had not been well for a long time. I think for years he was not able to manage the plantation, but no one realized it. He left everything more and more to the overseer, a man named Bryant. Last winter, Bryant sold off the whole crop and then disappeared. Probably he sailed back to England on the trading ship. Grandfather couldn't believe it. After that, he never was really well. The other plantation owners were his friends. Nobody ever pressed him. But after he died, there just seemed to be debts everywhere, wherever I turned. Did you pay them? Yes, every one of them. All of the land had to be sold, and the house and the slaves and all the furniture from England. There wasn't anything left, not even enough for my passage. To pay my way on the ship, I had to sell my own Negro girl. That's messed up. With one syllable, Matthew disposed of the sacrifice, only a little less sharp than grandfather's loss, of the little African slave who had been her shadow for 12 years. There was an awkward silence. Kit found Mercy's eyes and was steadied by the quiet sympathy she saw there. Then her aunt came to put her arm across her shoulder. Poor Catherine, it must have been terrible for you. You were perfectly right to come to us. You do believe she was right, don't you, Matthew? Yes, her husband conceded harshly. She was right, I suppose, since we are her only kin. I will bring in the baggage. And at the door he turned again. Your grandfather was a king's man, I reckon. He was a royalist, sir. Here in America, are you not also subjects of King James? Without answering, Matthew Wood left the room. 7 times he returned, bending his tall frame to enter the doorway, and with wordless disapproval set down one after the other the 7 small trunks. They filled one entire end of the room. Where on earth can we put them? Quavered her aunt. I will find a place for them later in the attic, said her husband. 7 trunks. The whole town will be talking about it before nightfall. Well, that's chapter 3. If my baby wasn't out there being sad, wishing I'd come, I'd just read another chapter, but I better not. It's quite interesting. And I know for people who are familiar with history at all, in the 1600s, so in the 1400s, when Columbus came to America and they started to settle, and then, over the next couple hundred years, there were settlements. But technically, the United States, or what was settled of it by the Europeans, was still under King James's rule. But the colonists had started to want independence and freedom because they were still being taxed and governed and controlled by the king. And so there was quite a division among the people, the colonies, and the people who were in the United States. A lot of them were royalists, or people who believed they should still be under the king's rule. And a lot of them were the Puritans, who believed that they should have their freedom, right? They should be able to make their own choices and do their own taxes instead of having to send everything they made back to England. So it was a really very contentious time between the settlers, between the 2 factions. So it's kind of interesting. And that's another reason I love these novels, these historic novels, because it was a very real thing at the time. It was a big deal, the people who were loyal to the king and the people who weren't loyal and who wanted, and there was a lot of fighting between them. So that's kind of what's going on here. She's loyal to King James. She's a royalist. She believes everybody in the US should be ruled by the king, and she moved to this place with this family who don't believe they should be under the king's rule. So that's right off the bat going to be a contentious theme for her with her new family. Anyway, I am not reading ahead in this book. I've read it years and years and years ago, but I'm not reading ahead. So I'm keeping it so that it's just as interesting, for me as for you guys, so that I don't know exactly what's happening next. I don't remember most of it. So anyway, I'm enjoying this time so much. I just feel so like it's so special to have my children popping on here and kind of saying hi and making me feel like I get to have a few minutes with you guys every day, and anybody who wants to join. Of course, like I say, everybody loves stories, so that's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and we'll pick up at chapter 4. And I love you all. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next